It's in you. You possess the power. Just go hard. I need some motivation. Every day I try a little harder, but my dedication. Keep my head way, way above the water. Crowding myself when I yell at the wall. Begging to run, but I needed to crawl. I see the finish line up ahead, trying to get traction from all of this tread. I am a king, I am a queen. I am more than the people can see. I am strong when I'm needing to be. Vulnerability's nothing to me. You can try, but I'm unshakable. My successes is never debatable. I'm chameleon, I'm so interchangeable. Here's to you and all that you are capable.
You gotta go hard, better get it. You gotta go hard, better get it. You better go hard, better get it. Better get it. You gotta go hard, better get it. You gotta go hard, better get it. You gotta go hard, better get it. Better get it. You gotta go hard, better get it. You gotta go hard, better get it. You better go hard, better get it. Better get it. You gotta go hard, better get it. You gotta go hard, better get it. You gotta go hard, better get it. Better get it.
One fire drives out one fire, one nail. Shakespeare. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Guys, gals, everybody, hey, welcome to another episode of Be the Leader. This is the show that we help you guys with your leadership, your mindset. We help you with your overall success. And from time to time, I'd like to bring in some guests to help elevate you guys and build you into, the leaders that you would follow, but that your kids would follow, that your spouse would want to follow. Just build you into the best you. All right, so in today's show, I'm really excited to dive into today's episode because, a lot of people have kind of started shifting the way they handle their life since really 2020, like the pandemic, right? A lot of people realized when the economy got tight, it was time to start creating little side hustles, create businesses. And right now we're in a state where a lot of people have done that. They've got into entrepreneurship. They've got into business. They're learning that they want to not just have their job, but they want to become self-sustaining in their life. And so I thought it was really important to bring a guest in today that could help you guys out with both business and life. Like, how many of you guys want to optimize your life? You want a higher quality life. You want things to be smoother, less stress, more peace, and you just want to enjoy the life that you have in front of you. And how many of you guys want to optimize your business? Maybe you have a ton of headaches in your business, whether you're starting out and right now your business is a side hustle, or you're doing over 7 figures and you're stressed out because it's the biggest your company's ever been. You're pushing to 8 figures and beyond, and you just feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders and you're doing it all yourself, and you just want to relieve some of that pressure that you're under and still grow. Okay, so today's guest is the perfect fit to help you guys with those challenges and help you get the business and life that you love, all while remaining a family man or family lady. So today's guest, I have a friend of mine, a business partner as well. So I'm excited to introduce to you guys. He's a business consultant, and he's worked with like top brands like Versace, if I have it correct. I think.
No, yeah, I coached the art director for Louis Vuitton.
Oh, Louis Vuitton.
Yeah,
I was going to say Versace.
Yeah,
so
Versace, right?
Yeah, Versace. It's fancy, you guys. Yeah. But he's been on, I know Chris Voss interviewed him on a show that's coming out on Amazon Prime, is it?
Yeah, so that one's coming out on Fox, CBS. That one's coming out all over. It's a TV show, or it's a show that's coming out. It's called That's Right. Really, really great stuff. We really respect Chris Voss, and the Amazon Prime is a different show called a 60-Day Hustle, where we take, it's like a fusion of like Shark Tank with The Apprentice, with like Survivor, and we popped it all together. It's a great show that if someone is an entrepreneur and they're kind of at that early stage and they want to watch something that gives you a step-by-step process to elevate a brand, get more sales. So I'm one of the producers of that show.
Great. So you guys, the guest that we have today is Antonio Garcia, phenomenal business coach, worked with some high-level people, and he's just the guy that I see a lot of people that get into, I never really had a clear roadmap when I got into business. I was just guessing, and I see a lot of people starting off in entrepreneurship, and I thought it would be great to have you come in to help them avoid some of the pitfalls, help them optimize things, and set their business up for success, so that way they don't fall into something, a problem in the future that they could easily avoid.
100%.
And he's from Alaska. He's born up in Alaska.
Born and raised in Kodiak Island, baby. Born and raised. I'm based out in Vegas right now with 3 kids. Been married for closing in about 8 years now.
Yeah.
And man, it's been quite a journey. It's been, you have to like pinch yourself sometimes. You're like, how are we here? But it's a lot of fun. That's for sure.
I like your story of coming from a small town. You came from a small town of like 2,000 people.
It was pretty small back in the 90s for sure. Yeah.
And landlocked, right?
Yeah.
And I lived on a little island out there, pretty much. Is what how I understand it.
Yeah.
But to go from that, like humble upbringings, to become an entrepreneur, working with top figures like Chris Voss, helping businesses scale and even exit, become more optimized. That's a pretty big transformation, man. To go from something like that into what you're doing now.
You know what it is. I feel like Alaska sets you up for great entrepreneurship. It's like when you look at the communities that are out there in Alaska, it is accountability driven. Big oil industry, big military, like a lot of great military bases out there, like the most lethal people, because we are one of the first lines of defense against anything on that side of the planet, right?
Yeah, Russia.
Russia. You got China. You got China. You got all kinds of people, beautiful people, great people. I'm sorry. And then and commercial fishermen too as well. So the people out there are wired to have high accountability. Like it's just too cold. It's too cold up there. Like there's a lot of situations where people can die out there, whether they're doing commercial fishing, whether they're flying a plane. I've had a lot of my friends, their fathers get killed just literally fishing to feed their families, or flying a plane, like a small Cessna plane, from one side of the island over to the other. And so the environment over there is really different, where it's like, I need you to do what you say you're going to do in order for us as a community to survive. And you don't really get that everywhere. I lived in Los Angeles. People are not usually like that out there. Like when you look at other markets, it's not really like that. Over there, there is no escape. We're depending on each other to be a jack of all trades. And that kind of flakiness perspective of life, it didn't really exist out there. You can't. It's like one of the worst things. And I feel like we're wired to not be like that. I can't think of any culture at any time in human history where they value flakiness. They value the lack of accountability. Nowhere. So Alaska is very much like that. And when you kind of layer that over entrepreneurship of being accountable and just doing what you say you're going to do, despite the elements, despite it being like negative, 20 degrees, despite whatever, despite the ocean, you just do it and persevere. So that actually worked really well with business. That works really well in running a military operation. Those belief systems are already ingrained because it's natural in the environment. So it was just really easy to get to there. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you're saying like a lot of it is you had a real community up in Alaska, and we're super fragmented in the United States. The lower United States. Like we're individuals a lot of the times. We're not really strong communities. Like where I grew up, you're absolutely right. It was the same thing, where a town of 300 people. Everybody knew each other. I mean, yeah. Like if you did anything stupid,
or even if you didn't do anything, like
right.
I heard a rumor. It's like
they just talk.
It's like what?
Yeah, and you just like my grandparents owned the local pub. You know what I mean? Yeah. So we weren't old enough to be in there like at the bars and stuff like that. But all the parents would hang out, or the grandparents or whatever, and the talk of the town would be about each other, like what the Solven kids got into and that sort of thing. Yeah. And so there's like this tribe mentality that goes along with being in a small town that does also hold you. Creates that accountability that you're talking about as
100%.
well.
Yeah. So you'll I would assume that a lot of the people in that town, they wore multiple hats.
Yeah.
So it's like your middle school 8th grade teacher is also a fisherman, also like a football coach, and he works part-time at the doctor's office.
Yeah.
So it's like you're always seeing the same person all throughout. And
yeah.
So yeah, that's one thing that we got too over there in Kodiak.
Yeah, my mom was the teacher assistant at the school, but she was also the main waitress at my grandparents' restaurant.
Yeah.
So it's like she's doing both jobs.
Yeah.
And anyways, all right. So some things that I want to dive into so you guys know what's ahead for the show. I want to talk. I mentioned talking about optimizing business. I think that's going to be useful for everybody. And how that, I think it's going to be not just useful for people that have businesses, but it's going to help people optimize their personal lives.
Yeah.
That's going to be useful for everybody. I also want to talk to you about building kids with values, because I know you raising kids with values.
Yeah.
And because I know both you and I have that in common, where that's a very important thing for both of us, having character, having integrity, and how do we instill that as adults into our kids. So I want to talk about those two things. And I also want to talk about
That's a great one. That's a great one to dive into, because there's so many overlap with that in business. 'Cause I think when I work with companies, that's one of the things that is like an afterthought that tends to impact how they hire, how they fire, how they maintain people,
Right.
disciplinary action, HR code. Like there's a lot of things that happen with companies that are not so great because they didn't go over that.
It's the same thing in relationships. Like in
Oh,
a romantic relationship, you could marry somebody and then 5-10 years down the line, 20 years down the line or whatever, you realize that you guys don't have the same values, you know, and people never really sat down to think about what they do value. Like if you value health and fitness, but then the other person doesn't, it's like at some point that's probably going to clash in the relationship, you know?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
So business optimization, life optimization, raising kids with values. And then the last thing was stress management, like reducing stress as a leader, ways that you can do that in either your business or your life, because that was one of the topics that you and I have dove into in the last
last couple of hours.
Really,
We did a workout. So Jeremiah picked me up. We did a workout like at 5:30 in the morning, and while we were like lifting, we were just chopping it up. And that's one of the biggest things. Like, how do you handle stress, and what do we do here?
Yeah.
And it's like it just really depends on the beast. It really depends on the person.
Yeah.
Like what might feel good for me. Like if oh man, I'm really stressed out. I am being torn in 1,000 different directions. I feel like I'm swimming in cortisol, blah, blah, blah. I'm really feeling the heat and the pressure of the business. And it's like, oh, that's cool. But maybe for someone else, like, I feel cozy. That's no thing for me. So I think it's really identifying like what type of animal you are, as cliche as that might sound. But the way that you handle a tiger is not the way that you handle a stallion. It's like, are you a tiger or are you a stallion? Just using that as an example.
Yeah.
So they're powerful in their own ways. So are you adopting the habits that you think is going to help you, but you're getting it from a tiger and you're adopting it to yourself as a stallion, and you don't even know what's what.
Right.
And I think people tend to have like an uphill battle trying to implement habits and rituals that work for you, but they may not work for me because they haven't had the wherewithal or the time to actually dig within, which tends to be one of the last things that people do, is actually like, what works for you? Who are you? Going back to the core values thing. So it's interesting. It's a very interesting process to peel all that stuff back.
Do you think the trick, I mean, not to jump around too much, we'll get really focused, because I do want to dive into a little bit about what Alaska was like and that experience.
Yeah.
I wanted to dive into some of your entrepreneurial experience, but since we're on this topic, before we hit those things, you know, when it comes to stress management, do you think the key is to increase your threshold, like increase the amount of stress I can tolerate? Or do you think the key is reducing my stress in my life? Which one do you favor? I mean, obviously you want to do both, but from your lens, which one?
I would recommend people seeing where they redline first. As fucked up as it sounds, it's like, okay, if you would do this in the fitness. It's like, all right, well, if you're trying to figure out like what is someone's current threshold when it comes to running, are we just let's just start walking? It's like, oh, let's see how, like, if we put the pedal to the metal, how long can you run for? Is it 5 miles? Is it 1? Is it 20? Is it like, where's the upper limit? So I think if you're watching this and you're maybe in your 20s, put the pedal down, dude. See if you could do like 16-hour shifts. Where is that red line? I would rather see what the red line is first and then go backwards. So I want to see where your implosion rate is. Where are you balancing between like chaos and order? So I want to see at what point are you going to start to absolutely lose your shit? When are you going to implode? And like, okay, it's not there. Let's reel it back a little bit and then have some strategies in place so you're constantly kind of kissing that spot. So that way you're still high performance, but you're not blowing up the engine along the way.
What do you define the red line as? Like, what's the moment? Is it emotional? Is it suicide? Is it, what is the red line, do you think? I mean, obviously we're not encouraging people to commit suicide, but I'm saying you have to define,
never.
Like, fuck,
stay alive, guys. Yeah.
Bro, I mean, and that's real. That's with entrepreneurship and the military, suicide's a real thing. So,
yeah.
I think it is important to push somebody's threshold when it comes to their stress tolerance, because your stress level tolerance determines how much success you're actually going to have in life.
Yeah. So, I want to look at like where things are felt. So if you're pushing it, let's break it down into some buckets. One of them is like, what's the work and what are you actually doing? it's strange because like I could probably work like, and I've done this before, like 16 hours a day doing physical labor, and I'm fine. I'm totally fine. Versus 7 hours or 6 hours of intense intellectual labor, where like your brain is just fried.
Oh, dude.
Where you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I did like
Yeah.
9 coaching and sales calls in one day one time, 9 1-hour calls.
Yeah.
I didn't eat. I was mush. My brain was so, it was a complete zombie.
Fried
thinking.
chicken.
Just absolutely.
Your scrambled eggs.
Yeah.
And it's like, I would rather probably work an 18-hour shift doing something physical, and I'm cool because the mental capacity of that is actually lower. So physical labor is high, but mental capacity might be a little bit lower versus you sitting at a desk for 9 hours. You're literally doing this and just talking for 9 hours, but you're like, fuck that. I'd rather switch that up.
Yeah.
So bucket number 1 is the physical side. Like push yourself there, see where that threshold is, and the intellectual side. And also when you do that, it's like, cool, where do you feel it? Where do you feel it? Like there's byproducts that end up happening. It could be like sleep deprivation, like you can't, your thoughts are racing. Even when it comes to recovery with the body too as well. So once that happens, it's like, okay, now you can start supplementing things so your recovery is a little bit quicker when you're redlining it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like looking at your being as a sports vehicle. Like what type of vehicle are you? Are you an F1 car that's like high performance S, but you're not going to take that F1 car and drive it up a mountain. You know, that's like a Jeep Wrangler type of thing. So we want to make sure where that's at and then figure out where you're pushing the vehicle so you know what you need to supplement in the vehicle to make sure it continues to run. So redlining physical and intellectual.
Yeah.
And
I like
both.
Those are really good. I mean, that's a really good mindset to have when it comes to pushing yourself in life, like figuring out, how do I need to push myself? Do I need to increase my physical threshold, or do I need to increase my intellectual threshold?
Yeah.
And the way you broke that down, it makes a lot of sense. Why I think that veterans that become entrepreneurs can handle so much pressure. Like for myself, I was under a massive amount of pressure as an infantry officer, and the amount of intellectual pressure I faced out on target was crazy. And I mean, it wasn't like I was out banging and doing raids every single day or as an infantry commander, I was out there on that deployment for 9 months. 6 of those months I was a commander, and I had 4 platoons moving around, but my intellectual capacity, I didn't know at the time that it was growing, but like you said, it was growing massively because I was always thinking about all the different moving parts, and my threshold was increasing.
Yeah. And I would imagine your state is also, it's different when you're doing something for yourself, and then like my decisions, like for you, my decisions can impact the livelihood of my men and my service women too. And being in that state is very, very different, and it allows you to kind of persevere and expand on that capacity. You're able to take on a little bit more. So that's another thing to kind of consider is like, if you're pushing it physically, it's like, how long can you hold that for? And also capacity wise, how long you can hold that for? There's some people that we know that are just academic geniuses. They can literally just do back to back lectures all day, 5 days a week, like nothing. But you throw them into a construction site, they will fold like a little, like just cupcake.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty bad. So finding out what works for you and finding out what that is, and then going to what feels good in relation to what your goals are, because you're going to have areas of your life where you kind of have to put the pedal to the metal a little bit, and other areas where you could coast a little bit. So picking your spots, and then what works for you for your recovery. Like, what is your mental health and physical health toolkit that you need to dive into to get yourself back into peak state?
That's really good.
Yeah.
So to give them a takeaway, and then we'll go into some growing up stories. If a military operation is very stressful, like it's very similar to an entrepreneur who's stressing about payroll. When you go out on a military op, you're worried about the lives of your people, right? Yeah. Whether it's training or real world. And then in business, paying your people is something that stresses out the business owner a lot. That requires a lot of intellectual capacity. So for somebody that's experiencing a lot of intellectual stress when it comes to payroll and just the health of their business, what do you say to that person to help them bring the stress level down? Maybe they're tired of like that constant agony, that constant mental pressure, and they want some relief there.
Yeah. So this is where like delegation is like such a superpower.
Okay.
So like there's aspects of your business that you are really good at and you love. You can do it all day, every day. Like there's some entrepreneurs that are like sales masters, like they're fucking ninjas, dude. And they can just do those back-to-back calls and just close all day.
Yeah.
But as soon as it's like, hey, can you handle these balance sheets and whatever? They're like, blah! You know, and like, no, I'm going to go back to sales. I'm going to go back to business development, right?
Yeah.
So what are you good at that you really enjoy? What are you good at that you don't enjoy? What are you not good at that you don't enjoy? Is that right? And then like, what do you suck at and you don't enjoy it?
I get the
Right.
concept.
It's that, right? So when it comes to your business, you want to pop things into those buckets. And when you pop those things into those buckets, now you have it on paper and you can point to it. Be like, I am amazing here. I love this, but I'm not so great at that. This one, I'm not so great, but I do love it, right? And you could just kind of go through that process. And so when you are breaking down, like, what are the hats that you're wearing every single day and which hat you put on where you're like, I don't want to put on this hat. I'd rather take a shotgun blast to the face than put on this hat, but I have to do it because I'm the entrepreneur or I don't have anyone else to do it. Like, what are those? Identify those and then figure out how to delegate that over to somebody else where that is the thing that like, oh my God, I love doing that. I love spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are amazing. I dream of spreadsheets. Someone else is like, I rather jump off a bridge than look at a spreadsheet or build a spreadsheet. Because when you're doing things that it almost feels like play or fun to you, you don't feel that way.
No.
It's like, oh, business is fun. It's cool, man. I'm like killing it. I'm doing this over here. And then I got my team. They're going to handle that. They're going to handle that. And it's all synergistic. So delegation is going to be a great thing. And it's just part of the process, the entrepreneurial journey most of the time, like 99% of the time, where you are, wearing the marketing hat, the sales hat, the financial hat, the operations hat, the leadership hat, the personnel hat. And you kind of have to like learn a lot of it. And so when you delegate it, now you kind of learn a little bit more of what to look out for so you don't get screwed over. That's a big thing.
I mean, when I hear that, basically what I hear is if I'm trying to reduce my intellectual stress, if I am proficient at it and doing it, but I hate it, get rid of it.
You could, yeah.
Essentially, like delegate it out, get it off my focus there first.
Well, it's a wise thing to do, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, when we're talking about military operation, it's like you can't wear all the hats, and you're gonna have some team members in your platoon where it's like, this is the guy that should handle explosives, not me. Or like let's get Steve on the ridge over there and snipe everybody. It's like, well, like you could do it, but it's like he's just better. And for us to win, for this business to grow and win, we need to pop the people in the right spots. It's the same way you would with a sports team. It's like right now we're in the middle of the NFL playoffs. It's like you're not going to take a quarterback that's like and put him on your make him a DB all of a sudden. It's like that's not where they're going to thrive. Yeah. So having the intelligence to identify that and then popping people in the right place towards a common goal, and you're just moving them alongside a system.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good, guys.
Thanks, man.
Well, no, I'm just thinking like you guys need to take a note on that. Like, what am I proficient at in my business that I hate doing, and can I delegate it out? Because that'll relieve a lot of that intellectual. If you want to sleep at night, that is.
Yeah,
you know?
Just to kind of add on that one, because there's some things that I'm really good at that I really don't enjoy doing. I don't. And when you're running an organization and you have someone that's like, like if you have let's just say you're like in a company and it's like, Jeramiah, you're really, really great over here. I know this is your flow zone. I need you to start building out some processes over here. And you might be like, oh, but it's like, but you're good at it. You just don't like doing it, but you're good. When you have to do that with an individual, you need to have two things in place. You need to have the right incentives for that person where it's like, hey, I need you to be in Q2 in 2025 for these 60 to 90 days. You where the business is at, you really got to help me on the operations and protocols and all this stuff. I need you to build this. I know you don't like it, but I need to hear. And because you'll do that, let me do this for salary, let me do this for a bonus, and then let me add like maybe 3 days for vacation. And so that's number one, is having the right incentives. That can mean differently for different people, what the incentive is. Dangle something.
Yeah.
Right? And the second thing is you want to take them out. If I am on month 6 of having you do those ops, when you're like, dude, you said 2 months and now we're on month 6, that is a lack of integrity, and that's a lack of vision, and that's just not good. You want to treat those situations like you're going undercover. You're going undercover. I'm throwing you into the Colombia cartel. 2 months, you're in and you're out. We're getting you out. Not like 2 years later, like, man, I don't even know who I am anymore. Yeah. What side am I on? Like, you want to get them in and get them out, and you want to honor it. So you definitely want to honor it. Right incentives, and then having the right time frame, and pull them out. If that means you need to pull you out and get someone else to continue to carry that ball, that's cool. But you need to get out and get back to this. That way, that trust is there. We're like, we didn't finish it, but it was 60 days. Let's get you back out over here. Kimberly or Tammy or Rich or whoever, they can take the ball and run based off of what you built. That creates trust.
Yeah. Saw that in Iraq with people putting people in temporary spots for missions, convoys, and then, hey, we just need you for this one, and that turns into 2, 3, 4. Like, next thing you know, they're in that spot for 3 months, and they just hate their life, man. They're just getting, and they're afraid, and they lose trust in the leadership, and then the next thing you know, the organization turns toxic because all the guys below are talking shit about the boss, you know?
Yeah. It's one thing to be in the military where it's like, I sign on the dotted line. Like, my body is basically yours for the most part. But when it comes to business, when you make those mistakes, you can take an A player of your organization that got pissed off because you're not communicating. This is actually what happened to me pretty recently with an organization that I was working with, where it's like, you are not honoring what you said you're going to do.
Right.
You did not do this, and you're not communicating, and you're just sliding things under the table, and you don't like people, and you don't like this. It's like, this is not what we signed up for. So we got to part ways. It's being in alignment of your values, but making sure that you're holding people's feet to the fire as far as, like, you said this. Yeah. This is what we agreed on. This is not what's happening. And it's almost better to create that separation and make it just like we're parting ways because of this at the moment. No big deal. It's not working out, versus staying and building that animosity and resentment. Because this is by choice. People can quit, people can retire, people can do whatever. So if you know it's a voluntary system versus military is a little bit more involuntary, right? Like, it's like in the civilian world, people can leave, people can do all that stuff if you're not holding up your end of the bargain. So it's wise to make sure that trust is there.
Good shit. Alaska. What did growing
bigger
up
than Texas? Just a friendly reminder for all y'all in Texas. Just letting y'all know we can fit a couple y'all in our state.
One of the common challenges with, like, I want to dive into this about your upbringing, because one of the things you said on the way down here, we're in Florida, guys, and Antonio, we were talking about he's in Vegas, he might move, and I talked about the move out here to Florida, what it was like for me, and how hard it was coming from Colorado, and I was like,
mountains.
Yeah, like,
why is it so flat? It's flat earth around here.
My fear was I'm going to turn so soft out here. Yeah,
turning into a cupcake, dude.
Yeah.
He's like jacked and shredded. I turned into it. Damn.
So, Alaska. Do you think Alaska made you tough?
I don't even know if I would say I'm tough, because it's like, compared to what I tend to kind of be my worst enemy. So
what was something tough that's happened to you in Alaska? Looking back on it, you're like, man, that was actually some pretty tough shit. Or that maybe even that you saw, like, what was the lifestyle out there? Yeah.
So, like, I'll use my dad as an example. So this is just what I was accustomed to seeing. So in Kodiak, there's a lot of fishing canneries, and you would imagine bone chilling weather. You cannot feel your fingers. You cannot feel your toes. Your ears are ringing and blistering because of the cold. And someone is handing you a knife. Your hands are inside cold, freezing seawater. And you have millions upon millions upon millions and millions of pounds of salmon that are coming in. And you are gutting every single fish by hand so they can be canned, so they can go to your store. And my dad would do that like 18 hours a day, standing up.
Hands in the water, like
Yeah, well, yeah, because I mean, the fish aren't coming in dry, so there's a lot of water in those machines that are used to just like when the fish are coming out of the boats and everything else, right? So and when you're gutting the fish, it's bloody, so you have to kind of rinse it. So you're constantly around water, getting hit with water. So doing that 18 hours a day, 7 days a week without fail for 9 months straight. Wow. Sometimes 22 hours straight, because you have back to back boats that are coming in and they have to offload. So you have these cannery workers, dock foremans doing whatever. And they're just, it's like when I think of tough, like I think of that. And here we are like, I had 9 hours of back-to-back sales calls, guys. And it's like, okay, dude. So I always think of that. And I think of even one of my grandfathers was a blacksmith out in Mexico. And this is like old school blacksmith, like the shit you see like in medieval times. Like that's what he had. So he would make horseshoes. He'd make all kinds of things. He'd be up when we would go visit out Mexico with him. He'd be up literally crack of dawn, pounding metal, old school, all day, hammers, doing that, grabbing coals with his hands, like tough work and farming. And my other grandfather was also a farmer. And like, that's not easy. It's not like they had this, John Deere tractor. They were in the ground, like they may as well have just been Amish, So it's, when I think of toughness and I think of what my environment was with commercial fishermen and everything else, it's just different. Like, so I am constantly holding myself to that, where it's like, what, like compared to what? I was talking about this with another podcast, like actually some time ago. Like I think comparison is actually quite good. Yeah, I think it's quite good. Like, don't compare yourself. It's like, no, compare yourself. Yeah.
Contrast.
Yeah. Give yourself that contrast. Give yourself that context. Is like, this is hard. Like, okay, compare to what? Compare to what? Yeah. Like, what's so hard? And when that's on my head, then I realize my brain switches it to be more solution oriented, and it's just easier to persevere. Because now you feel like a bitch, right? Like you feel like, dude, I'm such a wimp. And because I feel that way, then it kind of adds a little bit of fuel to the fire. It kind of adds a gap where you can continue to fight through. So
yeah, you stop being a victim when you realize that somebody else has had it harder than you.
It's so hard. It's like, well, I saw my dad go through that stuff, and my mom's a nurse too. So for her, like, 12, 18-hour shifts, 16-hour shifts, like all the time. It's like, dealing with people, making sure they're okay. It's like, well, like what's your hard, really?
Oh, so, yeah, 16-hour days are normal, man. People today, it's just like if they don't get their 8 hours of sleep and they don't clock in for 8 hours, and if they don't leave their job, if they can't leave their job to build their business, they don't want to do it. And it's like, bro, whatever happened to just grinding shit the fuck out, head down, hustling, and just focused on what you have to do and getting it done,
Yeah. It's very much like you do what you got to do. I remember my mom saying that a lot. Like, you just do what you got to do. Like, it's just, you just do what you got to do. Like, what do you have to do? Like, cool, like, do it. It's the most basic, simple thing. Yeah. But it's big for us, I think, even coming from like a Mexican household. Like, the culture with Mexicans is like hard work. Like, work ethic is a big thing for us. And I think sometimes with our culture, and this is maybe one of the things that have some gripes of the Mexican culture, is that we almost tend to look at it very physically. That like hard work
is only physical.
Like, hard work is construction. Hard work is landscaping. Hard work is cooking. Hard work is this, right? Like, like that. But and I'm loving that a lot of the Hispanic community is moving more towards entrepreneurship on different fronts, where it's intellectual too, but like. I had a hard day at work. Like, what'd you do? 9 hours of sales calls. It's like, okay, I did like 18 hours, like throwing, bricks everywhere. It's like they in the family are looked upon as higher.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it's a different mentality oftentimes, but I'm glad that it's moving.
Yeah, it's a perspective. It's like even with food, like sometimes you have these cultures in America where if you don't eat a certain way, the way that you're eating isn't real food. Like, you'll see this I see this with like heavier families. If you are in a family where everybody's
vegetables, right?
Well, yeah, like you need to eat some real food. Or I'm not eating, all he eats is bread, or all he eats is like not just bread, but like there's certain cultural foods that you see that people are like, you need to eat some real food, you know? And it's like, if you have a salad and you have some fish and you have maybe some grains, you'll get scrutinized by your family. They're like, oh, that's not some real food.
Here's menudo and here's some tamales and here's some horchata to wash that down. Right. It's like, that's like 7,000 calories right now. I'm trying to slim this thing back up, and it's like, thanks, D, I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a tough.
I get you. Yeah,
it's a tough barrier. But what did growing up in Alaska teach you? What did you gain from growing up there that's helped you in life?
It's one of those things where it's like you don't really realize it, and until you're kind of older. I remember I had some uncles. I remember we were talking about this. I had some uncles where they would come up and like visit. Yeah. And they would tell me like, you're so spoiled. Like, I don't think you're gonna realize how lucky you were until you're a little bit older. And I'm like, I don't know what you mean, like whatever. But it's actually so true. Yeah. I remember being a kid and just being like, I'm so tired of eating scallops and king crab and halibut. I'm just, can we get some chicken? And they were just looking at me like, what a little ungrateful brat. But to me, that was like very normal. But I feel like some of the things is probably appreciating Mother Nature. That's a big one. It's definitely appreciating Mother Nature. People die a lot, fishing, just literally fishing, being out whether they're in the Bering Sea, whether they're off someplace else. I think appreciating Mother Nature, not just with the environment, but also the animals. Where I grew up, a lot of Kodiak grizzly bears. It's just, you just don't fuck with wildlife. And like, even I lived in Anchorage for a little bit too. And like a moose is like the size of a Hummer. And it's like, if you want to respect nature, you want to respect Mother Nature. That was a big thing that I learned, is that you're going to have things thrown at you quite a bit, that you just have to stay locked in on your goals despite whatever's going on around you. And that's Kodiak down to a T, man. Like it rains a lot out there. We would get like probably 3 months of sunshine throughout the year. People don't ever think that. Like, it rains way more than Seattle. Like, it's a few inches shy of being considered a rainforest. It rains so much out there. It's like cold, miserable weather. But if you're growing up there, it's like, that's just life. So it's weird to me being in Florida where there's like sunshine. It's weird being in Vegas. It was weird being in Los Angeles because it was so bright all the time. So it made me appreciate seasons, or it made me appreciate that. Alaska also made me appreciate seasons, is that you actually see things dying, growing, blooming, with fall, winter, spring, and summer. It's beautiful seeing the circle of life. And in Vegas, we don't really have that. Los Angeles, you don't really have that. And it makes me appreciate those things. And I think it's just the patterns of life. It's the seasons of life. And I think being in an environment like that, it helps you also with tradition as well. That Christmas feels like Christmas because it's snowing, and my Christmases in Vegas don't feel like Christmas because it's just hot as fuck. Yeah. So it's I'd say like that's probably it, is like it's the accountability, it's the community side of things, it's the appreciation of Mother Nature, it's the appreciation of wildlife, appreciating seasons. And it's a really good example of how life is, that people have their seasons. You're going to have a winter, you're going to have a summer, you're going to have times where you're kind of self-developing. So I feel like it was subconscious, just literally being in that environment.
How have accountability seemed to be a really important one that Alaska taught you, right? How to stay accountable to yourself, how to be accountable to other people, how to be reliable. That seems to be like a really popular lesson that you took away. How have you built accountability into your kids' lives, or how are you trying to build accountability into your household the way that Alaska taught you to be accountable?
So just for context, I have 3 kids. I have my eldest is my little girl, and she's turning 4 next month actually. And then I have twin boys, and those guys, those little fuckers, they're like they're born the day before Halloween, so they're just like 14 months or.
I'm 4 and 14 months. Something like that.
I'm like not one of those parents like, my kid is 37 and a half months. Like, shut up, dude. You're so stupid. They've been alive longer than a year.
4 years and over a year.
Yeah.
It's like
so,
the ages.
Yeah, it's like a little less than 4, a little over 1. That's where they're at. So I'm just kind of in loving mode with them. But with my daughter, it's a little bit different where it's being a little bit more binary. And by binary means like when you finish this thing, when you finish like drinking your water, this goes to trash. You don't leave it here. So it's like, and making sure that there's clear delineations of actions. Because now when you're accountable, and when you're showing accountability or lack of accountability, it's typically because of an action, like what was done and what wasn't done. So it's quite binary, right? Did you do it or not? One of my favorite quotes is Yoda, like do or do not, there is no try. And I actually have that in my office. And so with the kids, with my daughter specifically, it's what we do after or before a certain thing. When we wake up, brush our teeth. Go to sleep, brush our teeth. When we do this, right? So it's kind of ritualizing her life without her knowing it. So when she deviates from that, then we can add some accountability of like, if you don't do this, this is what happens. And that's what keeps the guardrails on for them. Not much different than an employee.
Yeah, but you're also, like what you said, is you're being very specific about what the start of a task is and what the end of a task is.
Yeah. And then it's like, good job, babe girl. Yeah. High five. Yeah.
Yeah.
We got ice cream now, girl. Let's go. Good job.
Well, no, that's good because I think that a lot of people, they want to be more accountable to themselves. And that's a good thing that we can always do just for our own accountability is like, ask yourself, is the task done? My wife has a saying, and it's, don't put it away, wait, how did she say? Don't put it down, put it back. Or something like that on those lines where it's like, whatever, if I'm done with this, I don't just put it down, I put it back. And that helps her stay accountable to whatever task it is to putting it away. But these little tiny, these are soft skills and subconscious programming that are useful, so powerful for life. If you go through your whole life never learning how to finish a task at hand, like your whole life's going to be a shit show. So how can you stay accountable just to the small things so that you can move on to the bigger things?
Yeah. And it starts with like little, because these little wins are, these little things add up to big things. Yeah. Because at that point, it's just subjective. It's like there's this kind of, Bob Proctor talks about like the law of relativity. And by relativity, they're more looking like what's relative to you. So what's a lot of money to me, like let's just say $100 million is, let's just say that's a lot of money to Antonio. Is that a lot of money to Warren Buffett? Like, or to Elon Musk? Well, it's relative to him. So even when we're doing these tasks, the importance of the task can be relative. But I'm trying to really lock in on the habit of just like, this is what we do. Like I do this, complete, this is what we do after. And if they're able to complete everything from cradle to grave, now you can switch out that task to something that's a little bit more elevated, but now they're trained to do the beginning, middle, and end. And I rather have that for her, and that's what creates some structure. And it's just easier. Yeah. And then it's just layering. It's just no different when you're working with a client, personal training, whatever it is. Like when you eat the meal, you prepare the meal, you log the meal with macros, whatever it is, you're logging your macros. Like now it's complete. Now you're good. And now you have that. Now let's log the workouts. Let's log something else, right? And you can layer off of those foundations.
Habit stacking.
Habit stacking. Yeah. You're habit stacking.
So when you've got a sales background, extensive sales background, you've been in the fitness industry, you've helped businesses start, scale, you've helped them package, like become legally right, help them with the legal side of it. What's some crazy shit that you've seen in business that was like really, hard to either, I mean, if you can talk about it, but just kind of want to understand the scope that you've seen, like, have you seen businesses go bankrupt? Have you watched entrepreneurs like literally quit because their relationships were...
I'll use one that's pretty, that's something that you and I know. We had a mutual friend that killed himself last year.
Yeah.
Right.
Fuck.
Yeah.
I think about him a lot, man.
Yeah. And that's a situation where like you have someone that was a multimillionaire. He was, working with a lot of other companies around mindset, and there's a lot of things that I saw working alongside with him behind the scenes that were not necessarily a red flag, not an orange flag, but like a yellow flag. And you don't know certain things until you start really diving into books. And when you don't have access to certain key areas of a business, it's hard to get the whole picture. It's hard to get the whole story on why people are behaving in a certain way, or why certain joint ventures are falling through, or why some people are pivoting in another direction, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And,
A lot of assumptions.
Yeah. And this is a person that was like a really close mentor of mine, and it felt that there was a lot of side projects that were under an umbrella that were constantly getting funding, when the MVP, the minimum viable product, is something that I could have done for a fraction of what was funded. And so you start kind of connecting the dots where it started to feel like, oh, you're just siphoning money from your group with the prism or the facade that it's, under mindset, and we have to think a certain way. And so I feel like once that group was starting to also connect the dots, I feel like there was this massive behind the scenes pressure that happened that led to potentially a suicide. And it's hard to speculate, hard to do all that stuff. But we've had, this is like a mutually, it's a mutual relationship that we had that, they killed themselves. They shot themselves almost a year ago today. And so you see kind of the dark side of that stuff where it's like you really don't know what people are going through, where it leads to death, where we were talking about earlier, like we don't want people to kill themselves. And when you are building like a personal brand, when you're building a corporate brand, your public facing image is very sacred. And some people have a hard time releasing what that perspective is. And when turmoil is going on inside of your life, professionally and personally, it's very natural to want to maintain that public facing image. And what that means is isolating yourself to people that can help, people that can be there to, even as something as simple as being there to have a shoulder to cry on, maybe to strategize an exit, maybe to repackage this debt, maybe to do something else. But because this is the hill that they will quite literally die on, we can't help, we don't know. And then all of a sudden we get a call saying that this person is off the planet. And that's some of the ugly side of things. And I think part of what exacerbates this is social media presence. Is like, I can't be seen doing certain things because I have an image to uphold. Even though I lost all my money and I'm doing this, but I'm trying to maintain the perception of success because that's the foundation of what my business is on. So you see this kind of everywhere. And part of being a consultant is being able to kind of pull back those layers to figure out exactly what's going on with a company. And that's a skill set that I don't think everybody has. I know I have that, but that's a skill set I don't think everyone has, where people feel safe enough to completely lower the guard of what's going on with the company, what's going on with them and the company, so that you can actually write the right fucking prescription. If you're lying to your doctor and you're in pain, they're going to give you the wrong medication. And that can lead to malpractice. It could lead to physical harm. It could lead to all kinds of things, but it's just you weren't real. But part of the doctor's job is to get to the point and allow you to feel safe enough to reveal those things so we can have a great communication on what the steps forward are for, what the steps are to have a great outcome. And the ugly side of business is ego and self-image. People mostly have there's the pandemic that we went through, like there's a major pandemic around self-image. And I feel like that's what's leading to a lot of problems. That's what's leading problems with your personnel. That's what's leading to a lot of problems with relationships, is how people view themselves, which is one of the great things you're doing with with Conquer Academy, is like really helping on that side, because it makes business that much easier, because you are mastering and rising above your own demons that can lead to shady business dealings. You see what I'm saying? It's all very connected.
Well, yeah, it was a great way. You hit a lot of emotional chords in me, because, like I said, veteran suicide and business owner suicide has been prevalent in my life. It's like I've been around it a lot, and people bottle themselves up in what they don't want to do. I was actually just talking to my brother about this with something that's going on with his dog. His dog is like they're in Guam. There's not a lot of animal care out there. Something happened to the dog. But point is that the dog's having a hard time, and he said something like, I told mom and dad that the dog was fine. And he's like, but honestly, I'm not really sure. I just didn't want to worry them out. Mm-hmm. And that's like the perpetual problem when it comes to somebody that isolates and then ends up like offing themselves, is they don't want to be a bother to other people. Yeah. And in business, they don't want to be a bother to other people. That vulnerability is very difficult to do, you know? And so as you're talking through it, I mean, I'm thinking about even times in my life, like even in business with myself, I struggle with like, how much is sharing, how much is oversharing, and how much is just me just figuring it the fuck out. You know, like I've had some drama going on in my life with, I had this whole car situation that was going on, and I had bought these cars, and I didn't really put this one online, but the bottom line with this other vehicle is that I had to take this car back, and it was a financial strain in my life, and I'm having to figure this shit out. So, but everybody around me was assuming different things about this vehicle, and I think a lot of people were assuming that it was just an extra vehicle of mine. But as soon as I started to feel that way, I'm just like putting it out there, hey guys, this is what's going on with the car. I just want to let you guys all know, because it was keeping me up, and I'm like, I don't want you guys to perceive me as somebody I'm not. I'm not trying to create a persona or a facade. So for me, it's like
but vulnerability like that is such a great window of like that is another probably level of accountability, is just actually being vulnerable and seeing them. So I hear where you're coming from.
But I want to do that. I want to do more of that. You know what I mean? Like I want to be more vulnerable. As
guys, I have this rash I should want to share with you.
Not that vulnerable.
You know, that's fine.
But I think if somebody is in a situation, either like I'm in with that car, or a similar situation, or maybe I'm thinking I have a business owner that I'm thinking of right now that is very protective of their finances in the business. Yeah. And they know that if they were just to remove themselves and put somebody in that spot, the business would probably grow, but they're scared. And they don't want that vulnerability. So, you know, what do you say to that person that wants to be more vulnerable and wants to let go, but is having a really tough time?
Oftentimes it's because there's a connection so that is a reflection of the decisions that you made. It's a physical thing that is going on in the company that we can point to, that the results are a direct byproduct of your decision making. And if this is a shit show, it's because you created it. And that is a hard pill for business owners to swallow, where it's like, my sales are in disarray, or this is what's going on, and they know it's them. And it's like, do I really want to show that to you? Because especially in the world of finance, it's very black and white. Like, it's like the numbers don't lie. That's like, how do we get to this? How do we get to this? How do we get to this? Like, what's going on here? What type of accounting philosophy are you running here? Is it like, are you doing profit first? Are you doing something else? Like, what is this? And now you're on the hot seat. And it's very natural for you to be like, that's probably what's going to happen. Therefore, I don't show it.
Yeah, it's like when I talk to someone about their fitness, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Show me your macros. Show me your, I forgot to, but it's like, they just don't want to show it to you because they know that it is directly correlated to them. And people can't do that. And again, ego and self-image. If they had a little bit more humble pie, humility.
So how do we do that? How does the listener, you know, how do we become more humble, more vulnerable, and allow? Is there any like mindset tip or any like recommendation that you have for that person?
I'll just share with you like maybe what works for me.
Yeah, perfect.
Where are we in right now?
We're like in the studio.
We're a studio, right?
Yeah.
What city?
Fort Lauderdale. Well, Hollywood, Florida.
In what country?
USA.
In what hemisphere?
Western.
In what solar system, right? It's like, sometimes what helps me is like really realizing of like, none of this matters. Yeah. We're going to die. No big deal. Yeah. And it's okay. And I think I have a very different relationship with death. And this is like what kind of helps me, is just that we are literally on a floating rock in space. That's like light years and light years and light years vast. It's like whatever 90 billion light years or whatever it is. And it's like, here we are just stressed out about this one thing. That helps me with context. Another thing that helps me is looking back on some of the other hiccups of my life or my trials and tribulations of my own life that I know were worse than this. It's like, for that person, that finance, right? It's like, what else have you gone through in your life that's 10 times worse than this? And I know you've gone through it. It's like, I went through this, I went through divorce, I went this, I was homeless, I was beaten, I was sexually assaulted, I was like, all these things. I was like, and you went through all that and you're fine and you're here and you can't show someone your books to help you? Huh. It's like, all right. Yeah.
That's
it's like,
good.
right. So that's another context thing where it's like, you have gone through other things in your life that are, that this is a cakewalk compared to where you were.
Yeah, I think it's you know, for me at least, when you're saying that, if I'm in that situation, you know, I'm a high achiever, so if I feel exposed, I feel like I'm failing. Like I'm like, oh, I see myself as a high achiever and a winner. So if my books aren't exactly right and it looks like I'm failing, this person's gonna think that I'm a failure, and now I'm not who I think I am.
Yeah,
all that type
yeah.
of shit, you know.
Right. And oftentimes that really goes down to probably a fear that most people have. So it's like, if I'm a failure, that means that I'm not good enough, which
Yeah.
means that it enforces the belief that I currently have that I do feel like I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
And if that happens, that means that the thing that I've been trying to fight against of being achievement and worthy and that high achieving person, then if they see this, then this is real. I actually am not good enough.
Yeah.
And
Destroys the identity they've been trying to create through achievement.
right. And that is a hard two places to be in. And it's like, that is so uncomfortable. In psychology, they call that like a double binding message, where you're essentially having two different belief systems about the same thought. You see this around like money a lot. I want money, I want success and everything, but deep down, like, you think money is evil and you're not good enough for money, and money always escapes you and you're always in debt. And like, that's the belief system you have, but this is the want that you have. So the image and the thought of money means two different things, and that causes tension. So that could be in a ton of different things. So I actually feel like there's definitely ways around it, and sometimes I think context is important to kind of keep the move. I think context is important to give yourself just a different perspective, because if you're allowed to give yourself multiple perspectives of the same thing, it reduces the intensity and then it allows you to move. Otherwise, there's that saying of analysis paralysis. Like, you're just so up in your thoughts, how you're going to be perceived, how this is going to work out, and allows that to get quieted so you can actually just take the next step.
Solid. I want to make sure I get everything that I want to talk about in, so I want to move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Two things. So I want to hit on toughest times in your business or life, so I can hear kind of how you got through those tough times, and then pull out a lesson for the listener, if you wouldn't mind sharing. And then the second thing, I'll get to the second thing afterwards. It's basically, I want to dive into some do's and don'ts for building a business right for scale. And some things I want to hit on that as we close it out. So, tough times in business or life, a time for you that was really, really difficult, that was like a fucking oh shit moment, and what happened, what you turn around.
I'll share something that I haven't really talked to people about. There was a point where, so I moved from Alaska down to Los Angeles. I had like $900 to my name. I drove from Alaska all the way down to Los Angeles. Yeah. And I remember when I was out there, I didn't really know anybody. I didn't really know anything. The culture was different. The people were different. The communities there were different. Everything was really different. So it was like being baptized into this concrete jungle, and everything was just so different. And there was a length of time where I was actually homeless. I lived in my car. And I remember having to scrape up change on Ventura Boulevard to just buy a can of tuna. And I remember feeling like trying to be grateful for everything on the way down. And it's like, I'm sleeping on the floor in an apartment, and I can't afford the apartment. I'm having trouble finding work. I'm eating into my money. And then like, all right, I gotta, okay, so I'm grateful for being on the floor. I'm grateful to be on the floor that's has a bunch of what do they call like those bugs, in carpets, like bed bugs. So I was constantly getting bitten every night.
Yeah.
Like I had dots all over me where I was constantly bitten, where I slept on the kitchen floor because it was tile. It sucked. And being like, well, at least I have a roof over my head. And then being grateful for being in a car, and then like being grateful for having a can of tuna that day. And then it's like, I felt that one of the biggest lessons is that sometimes gratitude is being taught in a way for you to tolerate the stuff you shouldn't be tolerating under the mask of gratitude. And that really was like a click for me.
To tolerate the things you should not be tolerating
Yeah.
under the mask of gratitude.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
I should have never been there. I should not have allowed myself to get there. And I feel, and in having a grateful spirit masked a lot of the issues that I was running into versus being intolerant of it to persevere to move forward.
Bingo.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Like, well, at least I have a car to sleep in. At least I have a couple bucks. At least, and it's just like, if I were to talk to myself, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah,
like,
wake the fuck up. Be a little more desperate about changing your
it's
situation,
like, bro, like we're not like, you like throw gratitude out the window. You got to fucking fight now. Like this is not the place for you to be like that, like to. So that was really, really tough. And it took a minute to switch that out because it was really hard on a couple things and I had to just switch things out. And so I had a season where that's what was going on, and it clicked. And so when I got into more sales, and there was just more hunger there was just more a willingness to learn, consume information, get around different types of people. And sometimes people have to go through that in life. Is like there is that rock bottom where you're just on that verge of having a very clear, distinct conversation with yourself of where do you want to go, and is this who you really are? Is this all you got? Is this why you're alive? Is this your purpose? Like, you're better than this. And I remember I had like actually people later on in life, just I've started really beating myself up, and it wasn't until someone else was just like, dude, you're better than this. And it just like rang with me so true. And then I got on this really great journey of just connecting with the right people, providing right value, understanding where they're coming from, providing the right strategies. And it was just, you can really turn things around. You can turn things around if you want to. And sometimes you need to let go of certain belief systems in order to adopt something that's better for your situation, and then continue evolving. And it was being homeless in that little Kia Spectra. It was like gnarly. And it sucked. I wouldn't want that for my kids.
Dude, you guys need to listen to that shit over and again, because this is really so fucking good, man. Because a lot of you guys are grateful for the shit show that you're in. Stop being grateful, because gratitude's not helping you get shit done. Maybe you need to stop being grateful and be a little more desperate and turn your fucking situation around. You know, there is power in gratitude. We should all be grateful for the life that we have. But if gratitude's not creating results in your life, why don't you try something different, like some desperation and some action? Mm-hmm. Yeah?
Yeah. At least that's what kind of what it was for me, is that I was having these constant thoughts of that, and it's just like I realized I was using that philosophy as a crutch to tolerate my surroundings, and it's like this is not okay.
Yeah, like Musk talks about hope being like everybody's guilty of chasing hope, being hopeful. He's like, but hope's not like a solution. Mm-hmm. You know, here's something along those lines. Like, we should, if we become falsely optimistic, then our situation doesn't ever change. We need to have a real conversation with ourselves and figure out what the actual problem is so we can fix it.
Oh yeah, dude, 100%.
All right, moving into starting, packaging up, making sure all the bells and whistles are right in the business so that we can grow the motherfucker, sell it. You know, like you mentioned earlier, we were in there in the gym working out. You said that you've helped people. I think you said one job where you helped like 300 businesses start and get the correct LLC, get the correct
corporate structure in place.
Corporate structure in place. And so what does it look like if a business wants to be built right, what that corporate structure looks like, and they want to scale and exit? What are some of the things that they need to do right, and some pitfalls they need to avoid to make sure that they can
Yeah,
So-
I'll keep this pretty fundamental because it's just like someone's body. Like everyone has this like bio individuality where it's like what works for one person might be different for another person.
Yeah.
And also what the goal is too. You have some businesses that are started where it's like all they want to do is make like $5 million a year, or the business is revenuing $3 million. Just keep it really simple. And it's and the gross margin is like 20%. And they just want to go golfing like every day. They maybe work 5 hours a day, 2 hours a day, and they hang out. Like that's totally cool. There's other folks that are wired in a way where like it is $1 billion exits or bust. And that's a very different person. And so again, with like using someone's body, their bio individuality, it's like, okay, cool. We have a business, we have a body. Where are we taking it? Are you going to be an Olympic athlete? Are you going to be a Navy SEAL? Are you going to, you just want to be at 15% body fat with a little bit of strength? Like, so it looks different based off of the goals and aspirations of the entrepreneur. So we want to look at that first. A business is a very like general term, right? It's just the selling of goods and services. That's basically what it is. So how you go about doing that is different. You want to look at, you want to have a proper lens of how you're looking at your business. That's the first and foremost thing. All that other stuff is just like, all right, where do you want to go? And does the market have a demand for it? What's your strategy to get there? So on and so forth. All that is cool and all that is necessary. But let's actually look at what are the things you're needing with the business. So you want to make sure that you have a great leadership component in place. How are you communicating and placing troops, personnel in the right seats of power in order for them to execute on tasks and responsibilities to move the needle? That's one, right? So it's like leadership. And then what are the operations that are in place to make sure that accountability is there? And so the X's and O's are there. It's like on a sports team, getting your wide receivers and your quarterbacks and your tight end and your offensive linemen, get that personnel there. And then what's the playbook that's being run? What are they doing? So that way, if your one wide receiver goes down, can you bring someone else in and they know exactly what to run? So that's a big one. So it's your leadership, it's your operations, it's your personnel too. So those things go hand in hand. Your finance, all of this stuff, how is it being reflected in the numbers? Finance, and then also the last one would be marketing and sales. Essentially kind of one of the same thing, right? So you want to look at kind of how these 5 things are functioning in your company. It's best to probably use a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being this cannot get better. It is world class, no room for improvement. Everything is solid. And not just you believing it, but you're also getting other people to sign off on that too, whether it's a coach, consultant, comparing it to industry standard, whatever it is, right? Or like 0, where like, holy shit, fire, code red, we don't have any of these things in place. So it's good to kind of measure those things. That's important. Then the second part is also what stage your business is in. All right, did you just start this up? It's like, okay, how long you been in business? 1 week. It's like, okay. So you could very well start your business in 1 week and then blow it up to hundreds of millions, right? Like it just depends on what it is. Otherwise, like you are eating shit for years or you're eating shit for months. So you're having a startup phase, a perseverance phase, a viability phase. You also have a scaling phase and an exit phase, succession. Those are the 5 bases. So I'm also an Empire certified coach. I was mentored by really great people. Eddie Wilson is one of them. And this is how we look at business. This is how he's taken companies, scaled them. He sold over 1.2 billion in his last exit, just over over 70 companies. And that very same strategy, he does that whether it's a $40 million insurance company to real estate to whatever it is that you want to have these fundamentals in place first. So we're looking at the business simply. We're just simply looking at it and then we layer it from there. Based off of what we have fundamentally first, then we're able to determine like, all right, should we throw gasoline at this thing and it's going to move and do really, really well without it imploding along the way? And what can we anticipate some of the bottlenecks could potentially be or whatever it is? So those are, if anything, those are the 5 things I would look at as those 5 departments. I don't care if you're running a bakery. I don't care if you're running a limousine service. I don't care if you're running a marketing agency. You have those 5 departments. And I don't care what kind of business you're in one of those 5 stages. So if I can understand how those departments are doing and where your business is in one of these stages, then it's easier to curate and customize a strategy to get to where you ultimately want to go. Does that make sense?
Yeah. If all the pillars, all the buckets of the business, or let's say all the same ranking, they all suck or they're all like 5s. I know it's going to depend on the type of business, like which one you focus on. But do you have a preference on what's the most important pillar or what the most important department is for the healthy growth of a business? Is it the fulfillment? Is it sales and marketing? Is it, I don't know, like what's your stance on that?
Yeah, it very much is like, depends. You can have a company that they have unlimited fulfillment. Like they can, maybe it's a software, they can do unlimited scale. But their hole or their issue that they're having is maybe a sales funnel or maybe just a sales process. So like we need to focus on this in order for this to happen. Other companies actually quite opposite, where it's like, let's just say construction. You cannot like close 50 jobs and they're all ground up construction if your business can't handle that fulfillment.
I guess what would be a simple step that somebody could take to figure out what the biggest problem area is in their business and what they should focus on, other than they can do an assessment, but then they have a confirmation bias, right? They're like, oh, well, I'm the entrepreneur and I'm doing the finance, I'm doing this, I'm doing all these different things. And I think, and a lot you see this with like products, like a lot of people that are in the service industry, they're like, oh, my product is good, and they're in the service space, but their product, like maybe a coach, right? I know plenty of coaches that like they're good people, but they're not excellent coaches. And it's like, they think that they're good coaches. So how does a person basically get a good look at what lever they should, how can they audit their own shit and figure out what they should focus on?
So a couple things. And again, this really does depend. Sales solves a lot of things. If your sales are lacking and revenue is lacking, it's like cutting out oxygen for the company, right? Yeah. Nothing can work, because if you have a product-based business and it's like, well, you kind of need the revenue to come in and buy more product and do more things, right? Like you have that, and then you have a service-based business too, and not a whole lot of revenue is coming in, then it can really cripple you, because you could very well have like a payroll implosion too. So I would say, like, whatever it is that you're doing, make sure that your sales and marketing is on point. If your leadership is a little whack, your operations is a little whack, your finance numbers are all over the place, if you're at the very least selling a product and service that's good and money is coming in, at least you have some resources to delegate and have the right people to come in to sharpen up the other edges. If your business has no revenue and it's really, really hurting, but your operations is great and your leadership is great and all these other ones are great, it's like, okay, right? So make sure like sales is king, cash is king, have that be at the forefront first and foremost. And in doing that, you're going to have the market let you know how your product or service can be improved, so you can make adjustments to sell more. So at least get that revenue in, you're able to make some plays at that point. And then leadership and operations are going to be the biggest ones that I would say too. If you're able to systemize things a little bit better, you're able to communicate and galvanize the troops a little bit better, then everything is going to move swiftly. Everything can move together, because now I'm communicating with you something, and I have all this digital manuals, physical manuals, everything else that can bolster and help what I'm talking about en route to a goal. So I would have those things in place, because it's really easy to plug and play people or software or anything else when you have those two things. So make sure that the sales and revenue is good. And then if that's kicking, then it's going to be typically operations and leadership. That's a big one. And then everything else, personnel is going to take care of itself, because if the leadership is good, typically you attract the right person. And all of that, if that works beautifully, then the finance is usually taken care of too.
Solid. One of my mentors told me 2 pieces of advice for being successful in business. He said, number one, instead of trying to build a big business, build the business right. That was number one. Don't focus on building a big business. Focus on building the business right. Yeah. And then he said businesses fail because they grow too fast or too slow. So those little pieces of wisdom basically fall right in alignment with like what you're saying, and is to focus on the fundamentals, to focus on the foundation of your aspects of your business.
Yeah. If you get the fundamentals right first, then because you're in a right, when you get the fundamentals right and your operations and everything good, you can grow fast, because now all of the mechanisms and
It's actually the only way you do grow fast.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. So like, but you're growing fast without having to go backwards. You're not taking a tactical retreat, because everything is systemized. The infrastructure is there. Like the foundations of the business are reinforced with the right protocols, procedures, systems, the right operations, the windows to everything, tracking the KPIs, tracking the health of the business. Like if that all is there and all KPIs are fine-tuned, then you can throw a ton of money at this, you can grow it, and it'll be fine. And then it can go fast. But when you get to that point and you find that true viability, you can totally go for it.
You guys that don't have businesses, you can still focus on the fundamentals of your family and your household by applying this consulting advice to your home life, right? You can look at your whole house, all your different departments, and audit it in the same exact way. So I just want to throw that out there as we hit this last little topic, and then we close up.
Yeah, the family part's pretty good.
Yeah, like applying it to your family.
Yeah. Where we see kind of at the beginning of us talking, we're saying like core values is one of the things that it's almost like an afterthought, that as companies are starting to grow and scale, that they're just flying by the edge of their seats sometimes. And when you're hiring and firing off of the right core values, it's easier to identify the key players, who's going to be on your team, having that fence really, really high in terms of core values. So when they do come into the group, it's a good culture fit. And then you can always work around the skill side of things a little bit better. And that's a family thing too. So like even for me, my core values are, it's called the AP way, APWAI. Authenticity, positivity, work ethic, accountability, and integrity. Those are mine. So any of my companies, it's this one. Those are the core values, but it also applies to my family. My wife has this down to a T. Like my wife is all in. She's an all in type of gal. And it's good to not only be able to express your core value of what it represents, but also the things that you can do to demonstrate its opposite. So, work ethic is a big one. So I'll just use like authenticity. Like you're perfect as you are. You don't need to have a mask. You can be who you are completely, that you are fine the way you are. You're perfect the way you are. And if I come across somebody that you could tell that they're being fake, they're being inauthentic, they have like a mask on, I don't roll with them.
Yeah.
If positivity, the opposite of positivity, like if you're being a negative Nancy, I don't roll with you either. I don't want you around my family. I don't want you around my kids. I don't want you around my business partners. Negative Nancy. Work ethic, giving it 110% no matter what. And if I'm around someone that's a slacker, it's like, you're not with the company, you're not with our colleagues. I don't want you around my kids. I don't want you around my family. Accountability. If people are like deflecting responsibility and not taking ownership of their actions, I don't fuck with them in any level of life. And integrity is just operating at a high moral and ethical standard. So if someone is clearly doing shady shit and you could just tell that their moral compass is a little off, I'm not around them. So it's that transference of power and expectations with my kids and my family, that's what kind of that's what helps on the legacy front, because there's these moral guardrails that we have, and it's the AP way. That's like for me and my family, but it also transcribes really well with business. Like, how can I have that with my family, but I'm operating differently with business? It's weird to do that, right? It's like I have all this.
You're the same person in both spots,
right?
So it's not going to
100%.
feel right. There's going to be a level of cognitive dissonance between the two. Like you're going to have a belief system about one thing, but your actions are going to be another, or what vice versa.
Yeah, and I think when people do that, it eats their soul.
Yeah, 100%.
It eats your soul. Like I live in Vegas, and like there's the adult entertainment industry. It's like that. It's like, oh, I'm just here, doing the money, and I'm doing this other stuff over here, but it's really against of what they want to do, but they're doing it, and it really eats at their soul. And anxiety, depression, hurting, drugs, it can get pretty ugly. And that's adult entertainment, or it can be, but it's like that in any other walk of life. So making sure that you're true to that, identifying that, how you identify it. There's a system that I use to identify someone's core values, and making it not just an aspirational thing, but an inherent thing. There's core values that I'm trying to aspire to be. Patience is one of them. I'm not the most patient guy in the world, but someone's like, is Antonio patient? Probably people, my wife would be like, probably not, but I'm aspiring to be that.
Yeah.
If they say like, is Antonio a hard worker? They're like, yeah, he's a hard worker. That's in him. So, aspirational and inherent, it's in you. And then find the ones that are in you. Because if someone defies a core value that is in you, that's the one where like, oh, dude, I really don't mess with this person. Yeah, for sure.
The morals one is huge for me. I had a falling out recently because of that. Somebody just didn't have the level of integrity that I demand from myself, you know?
Yeah.
And when it comes to selling a business, say I'm doing around $8 million a year, and my goal is to closing in every year, a healthy growth, profitable business, but I want to go to 100 million and sell. My goal is to go to 100 million and sell. And that's the scenario. What are a couple of steps that I know that's a big generalization goal, and tell me how to hit that.
I'm 300
target.
pounds. I want to get to a 9% body fat.
Loaded question.
What can I do? Can you walk, dude? So it depends.
But let's just say, I run the business. I'm a CEO, and that's my target. Is I want to remove myself. I want to scale the company. I want to take it to 100 million, and I want to also go on to other projects and shit like that. What would you say are like a couple of steps that a person, maybe not steps, maybe
I got something for you.
Some guidance for somebody that has that type of goal.
Cool. So moving from 8 million to 100 million is a very different
business.
No, network.
Oh, okay.
Network. Because you're talking about selling it at 100 million. So what I would say to something like that is two things: talent acquisition and network. Those are two. If you have an $8 million business and you have aspirations to sell it, then get into some rooms around people that are like in private equity, or just people that like have the capacity to do something like that. And talent acquisition there's this saying that the people that got you here won't get you there, right? The people that got you to that 8 million mark will not get you to the 100 million mark.
I really like that. It's like simply put, it's like don't wait to hit your goal to take the next step. Like take the next step. Like if my goal is to sell at 100 million, then I should be putting myself in position to sell the company now, even though I'm not at 100 million. Like I need to get everything ready, get busy, and prepare as if I'm going to sell my business even before it's there. The law of assumption, essentially. Assume is that it's already done.
Yeah. So that's definitely a really great perspective on this. It's when you are around those circles too, there's kind of two things that happen. Is that your question, the subtext of that question is like, I need to know how to grow it and to sell it at this number. Which you're kind of saying like, I'm ignorant. Ignorant is not a negative or positive thing. It's just like, I just don't know. So when you get around a network around people like that, they know the players, they know banks, they know private equity firms, they know brokers, all kinds of things that can do two things. One is also in networking with something like that, you're able to pick brains a little bit better. You're able to develop relationships. You're able to do pay or play deals. You're able to get introductions, which goes to the networking thing. And doing something like that, if you have an $8 million business, even if it's at like 5% net, let's just say if it's at like, 5% net, what is that?
400,000.
400,000 of sizzling in your bank account, not even including what you pay yourself as an owner. So that amount of money you can use to get into masterminds, you can get into other places, like pay for access to get to some of these people so you can learn strategies, tactics, developing joint ventureships, affiliateships. You can develop any type of general partnerships, anything like that, because to get from 8 to 100, it's very offensive from like a football perspective. Like you're playing offense, you're getting touchdowns, you're revenue, right? So you want to have some players on this side of the ball that can help, and your network is also able to help you on the other side, which is defensive. So from 8 to 100, make sure you have the right teams and processes and systems in place, so your business doesn't fall apart when you're blowing past the $20 million mark, as an example. So the network side is really, really important. And then the talent acquisition side is identifying players that you want to absorb into your company down the road. So, hey, I'm at 8 million. This agency, this consulting firm, this CMO, I want to poach from this company, whatever, that they have experience from going to 10 to 50. Like, this is what I need. And you can create an incentive package for them, because now you have people that have been there, they've done that. And now you're just galvanizing them into your organization to drive towards the 20 million mark, 50 and 100 and so on and so forth. So you want to make sure that you're around the right people that can help you coordinate a buy, and then talent acquisition on the people that can actually help you internally with your organization to get there. So there's a lot of nuances, but like those are two things that I would really like go out and meet some of these great people, and then headhunt for quality personnel that can come into your organization to drive you there.
Yeah, I got some good takeaways from that. I even started thinking about some things that I'm doing with my company, and I'm like
everyone is fired.
Yeah, no. And then I was also thinking like applying this strategy for quantum leap growth to somebody's personal life. And it's the same thing. It's like, you got to 10x your life. You got to get around people that are at 10x your level and get in those rooms if you want your life to come up and not just your business. It's the same strategy, but
yeah.
The headhunting one I think was a huge one for me, because I'm like, I'm not really on the offensive with headhunting, but I should be. Yeah. I mean, I am with like employees and like where I'm at in my business, but I'm not really headhunting for the scale of my business. You know what I'm saying? I'm not really thinking that big.
Yeah, we're headhunting for the issues that I have at the moment, not the personnel that can overcome not only the issues of the moment, but to drive and help drive the business to double and triple and quadruple,
or even just 1 to 3 years. Like I'm like forecasting for that, but I'm not really thinking like at scale, who should I be headhunting for that, to these bigger numbers and shit like that.
Right,
so
right.
That was good.
And I think that's why it's even that much more important to get around those networks, because if you own that business, outright, there's equity plays that you can do too. Yeah. Right. So if you had let's just say you connected with Tony Robbins, right? Someone that we both like. And he's, billionaire, he's running over 100 something companies, whatever it is. And he sees yours and he's just like, this thing, I can definitely help get to that $100 million mark. And now you have equity there you can play with. And now they're able to bring in resources and everything else to help you do that. And now you can just give him a piece of the pie, and you're still hitting that goal. It's like, I hit it and I'm partnering with Tony, and now I have a different network. I have different things I can do. And the learning that you get along the way of that journey is very, very powerful. And now you can do it again and again and again. So if you're at that spot and that's the aspiration, those are the two things that I would really do.
Really good, man. What do you got ahead of you, and what do you want them to know before we close it out?
I guess I don't know. That's a really good question. I would say that if anyone is in that spot of, being the leader, of wanting to kind of elevate your life, elevate yourself professionally and personally, just know that that you're not alone. Know that anything that you're feeling and going through is very, very natural. We're only human. Allow yourself to go through the ups and the downs, and that's what makes everything beautiful. I would say also knowledge is power. I would also say get out of your comfort zone. I would also say that you're exactly where you need to be. If you want to connect with me, you can go to my website. It's very simple, very basic. So it's antoniogarcia.io. You can find me on Instagram at only Antonio Garcia, not OnlyFans, but only Antonio Garcia. And check out our show, 60 Day Hustle, on Amazon Prime. Coming out on Fox and CBS and a few other affiliates with Chris Voss's show. Really respect. Great book, Never Split the Difference. That's coming out here soon. And we got some really, really great things on the pipeline. And also subscribe to the All Things Locks podcast if you get a chance. We talk about everything around leadership, operation, culture, and strategy. There's really great stuff there. And we're here to help. You're not alone. We're here to help.
Love it, man. Hey, guys, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, Antonio is a business partner, too. We're going to be doing some events in the future. So just put that on your guys' radar. You mentioned getting in some rooms, meeting some different people that are more in line with where you guys are going. So make sure you follow him to get access to some of those events that he's going to be taking part in. He's going to be leading, he's going to be hosting, and he's got a great network, so he's definitely a guy you want to follow and consume his content. So, Antonio, that's all I got for you, man. Thank you so much for coming in.
Awesome, man. It was a pleasure.
All right, guys, gals, you guys know the deal. If you like the show, just do us a favor and share it. If you laughed, if you learned, if you walked away with like an epiphany or realization, or if it was helpful for you, send it over to somebody that you're thinking of right now that could benefit from the show. That's all that we ask. Until next time, be the leader.
It's in you. You possess the power. Just go hard. I need some motivation. Every day I try a little harder, but my dedication. Keep my head way, way above the water. Crowding myself when I yell at the wall. Begging to run, but I needed to crawl. I see the finish line up ahead, trying to get traction from all of this tread. I am a king, I am a queen. I am more than the people can see. I am strong when I'm needing to be. Vulnerability's nothing to me. You can try, but I'm unshakable. My successes is never debatable. I'm chameleon, I'm so interchangeable. Here's to you and all that you are capable.
You gotta go